Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Gala Russ, and I have an awesome guest today, Matty. Matty, why would introduce yourself, please? Because that's the first thing that I always forget about doing. So, and
I
go ahead.
I am Matty Dalrymple. I write the Anne Kinnear suspense novels and suspense shorts and Lindsay Ballard thrillers. And I also podcast, write, speak, and consult on the writing craft and the publishing voyage as the indie author.
And we met last year, I think, at did we meet at Writers Help Writers?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we met at Writers Help Writers, and I think it was last year. I mean, time passes so quickly. And hi, I'm Gala. I'm Gala Russ. I am an author and a writing coach and a publishing strategist. And my Substack is Writing Conversations, which is exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about writing. And to be more specific, we are going to talk about serialization and how to serialize a story on Substack. How to do it, why to do it. And Maddie is actually going to be doing it with one of her stories. And I have a half an idea of doing it for the story I'm writing in urban fantasy right now in the future. So I'm kind of learning. And another thing you need to know about me, I come from Wattpad. I started on Wattpad. And if you don't know what Wattpad is a serialized content platform where you write stories in a serialized fashion and you post them for free. Now there are ways to monetize it, but like when I started, it was for free. So I loved serialization. It was my first love. So I'm like, oh, is this going to be a full circle type of a thing? So I'm really excited to see you experiment. And the other thing I wanted to say is that we're going to come back in August. I think we said, I don't remember the date, but like in the middle of August, and we're going to do a debrief. So today's about like how are we going to do it? Like how's Maddie going to do it? What are her thoughts? What are her expectations? And then there's going to be lessons learned. As a former project manager, you cannot say lessons learned enough to me. I love all of that stuff. So this is my expectation. What about your expectations for today?
Well, we're going to be all about debriefing because I also am a former project manager. So we'll be all over this. And I'm very
Yeah.
excited to see one of my subscribers is on live chat. Catherine, it's one of the people who's been following the serialization. So hello, Catherine.
Hi, Catherine. Welcome, welcome. Don't be shy. Send us a hi in the chat message. And like as we talk, if you have any questions or comments or anything, just send us a message to chat. So let's test it. Catherine, would you mind sending us a little hi in the chat? Okay, so first thing first, let's talk about what is it that you're going to be serializing? What is the story about?
Well, the book I'm serializing is my 7th Anne Kinnear suspense novel. And this was one that I got done surprisingly fast. So I know exactly when I started writing it. It is a story that takes place on a cruise ship. I started writing it on the first day of a cruise that my husband and I took back in January. And I finished it on a cruise that we took in May. And so that was incredibly fast for me. And I think just having access to, being in the environment was a big help to me. And so I was finishing up. I was finishing up the book. I had sent it to my first early reader, the lovely Lisa Reagan, who is the author of the Detective Josie Quinn series, and I sort of coincidentally at the same time interviewed for the Indie Author podcast Elle Griffin about serializing on Substack. And I had already been using Substack for some nonfiction work I was doing called From Expertise to Authority. And I had discovered that because another Substack user, Angelique Fawns, had clued me in that Substack has all these nice auxiliary functions like spinning up a podcast or acting as a replacement for an email newsletter. You and I were talking
Mhm.
about some of the nice video capabilities it has. So I thought, oh, this is really something that I want to check out. And then having spoken to Elle, I thought, oh, this would be also a cool way to experiment with serialization for a novel, which I had never done before.
Yeah, we might have a little bit of a love letter to Substack today. Happening. I started my Substack last year, but realistically I have started in earnest this spring. Because before I started it and I kind of did a couple of trial, because I wasn't sure. I started my newsletter on MailerLite and I started my Substack at the same time in like January, February last year. And I was like, what's the difference? What do I do here? What do I do there? And I tried posting the same stuff. I tried to post some slightly different stuff, and I just couldn't find my footing, and I was overwhelmed. So I said, okay, I'm just going to go and do the newsletter because I'm a little bit more familiar with how that works. And I abandoned Substack, and I was more as a listener viewer. And then this year I came back to it and I kind of dug into the video capabilities, but I can totally see later this year doing what you're doing once I finish my first draft. I understand that your first draft is finished. So has it been already alpha read, beta? Like at which stage is it right now that you're comfortable serializing? It is like completely edited, or is it still a rougher draft?
It is fairly, I got it as good as I could myself. And then when I got my feedback from Lisa, there were some changes I needed to make. And normally, um, at that point, once I'd made those changes and given it to a proofreader and so on, I would have been pretty much ready to publish it. But one of the reasons that I was looking for more input is that the further I get along in the I have 2 series. The Ann Kinnear series, this will be the 7th book. The Lizzie Ballard series, I'm working on the 6th book. And the further I get along in the series, the more of a challenge I find it to balance the needs of new subscribers and not new subscribers, new readers and people who are just coming from the previous book. And so, for example, Catherine was provided some great input on, I would put an early chapter out, like where Ann Kinnear is being introduced. And I said, like, is this too much? Is it not enough? Like, are there things you could wait to find out about later? And so those things that are, that even one very, very astute reader can't tell you, getting a little bit wider input is great. I have never used Wattpad or any of those platforms. Normally, I would solicit beta readers from among like the subscribers to my newsletter, my followers on social
Mhm.
media. But I really wanted that broader input on aspects of the story. And the other thing that I didn't really realize was going to be such a benefit is the idea of getting it in the moment, chapter by chapter. Because I think normally you send a story out to beta readers and you get feedback back that says like, "Oh, I was a little bit lost in the middle, but I really like this character." Like you get it at the story level, you don't really get it at the
Right.
chapter level.
Yeah.
And so what I'm finding is that there are 2 craft benefits of the serialization approach. One is that I'm reading chapter by chapter because each day, so the mechanics are the book is about 42 chapters. I'm publishing a chapter a day. It will last about 6 weeks. And so each day before I post it, I'm doing one more read through of each chapter and I'm still finding things that I want to tweak. And then I'm also getting input specific to the chapter that I just don't think there's any other mechanism for getting that kind of input.
So I know one platform, and I'm completely blanking out on the name. It's called, I want to say Story Origin, but I might be completely confusing. Story something. It's green, and I used to do it. It's you know what book funnel is, right?
Yes. Yeah, Story Origin is
So
like Book Funnel.
like book funnel. So Story Origin has a beta reader feature where you can upload your thing chapter by chapter and they can go in and comment in line like they would on Google Docs, but individually so they don't see each other's comments. And then it puts all of the comments together for you so you can see all of the different comments per chapter from all of the different beta readers. And it also has a per chapter underneath set of questions that you can also ask them for the specific chapter. And I usually put exactly the same, like, do you want to keep reading the next chapter? Like, rate this chapter for 1 to 5. What was the best part? Like, one thing about this chapter that you like the most? Is there anything that you would like to change or something? Like, the generic questions like that, but they can inline comment. So they cannot see each other's comments. And sometimes it's cool for the beta readers to see each other's comments because they kind of gang up on each other and they're like, oh, yeah, this line was so good. Yeah, I thought it was so good. So it's cutie that way. but it's nice in a different way because you can see how different reactions are of different people. So I like using that one for beta readers. So if like I still think serialization is great and I love that. But if you're ever looking for that kind of a container, check out, that's one of the features that they don't have on BookFunnel or anything like that, but Story Origin does.
Yeah, I like that. I wasn't aware of that feature in Story Origin. One of the things that I don't think you get there that I really like about Substack is the discoverability. So
Yes.
I wanted to use Substack both to reach people, actually less to reach people that I'm already in touch with, and as a way of getting in contact with a new group of people. Um, and also, I kind of wanted to make it fun. Like some of these beta reader kind of things, it feels very heavy and like work like, and um, you're probably not going to get to the end of it and giggle with excitement. And I wanted it to be more sort of celebratory, I guess, which is something I think you can do on Substack that maybe you can't do on other platforms.
I can totally see that. And yeah, Catherine is saying, interestingly, I can choose to see other readers' comments or not in meta serialization. And Catherine, let us know what, in your personal experience, do you enjoy seeing other people's comments? Is that fun for you? Or do you like, oh, no, they're a distraction. I would rather not. And I think everybody's probably going to have a different answer, but it would be cool to know, Catherine, what you think. But I love that. That's one of the reasons I have been doing Discord for a while, because if you can have a reader have this sense of community, that just adds another layer. And that's why people do
Yeah.
Facebook groups for their readers as well, right? And I think that Substack does this well, having you aiding you in creating this community feel. Um,
Yeah.
the readers get to know each other, like it's fun for you and for them. I
Yes.
don't know. It's the same thing with Wattpad. That's one of the things that all the readers see each other's comments and digging up on each other. And somebody's going to be like, "Oh, why did he do it? You should rewrite this." And this is, and then somebody is like, "No, no, no, this is perfect, exactly as it is. Like, don't do it." And then they kind of go and fight a little bit. And I do not know if multiple comments, like on Instagram, if people comment and like engage in conversation, that's definitely boosting you stuff on Instagram. I'm not sure if that works that way on Substack or not. That's something to find out about, but it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
And Catherine said, I'm just figuring that out too, but in a way, I'm just having a conversation with the author. Yeah, yeah, Catherine, tell us more about that. I think when I first joined Wattpad, it was because Colleen Hoover, and it was way when, it was years ago when she was just writing her first books. Maybe she had like 2 or 3 books out. She decided to write a novella, companion novella to one of her first books on Wattpad. And I was following her at that point on Facebook, I think. And she said, "Oh, if you want to see as I write and read and comment, go there." And I'm like, "Ooh, I did not know that I wanted to be a writer." Like I wasn't pursuing being a writer at that point. Let's put it that way, but I was interested in like, what does a writing process look like from the inside? So I went to Wattpad and I followed her and I was reading the story as she was writing it, and you would comment and she would answer you. And that is just so amazing, having that kind of interaction with an
That is
author, to
super
me as
cool.
a reader, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that inside view. And that was how I found out about Wattpad. So years later, when I decided to write marketing for you, I went and I said, "Oh, I've done this reader experience on Wattpad. How about I go and I become the writer?" That's how they got me. But uh, yes, that's a wonderful thing. Okay. I feel like we kind of already mentioned why Substack specifically. And I think we have sort of answered that question too, but I'm going to ask, what problem are you hoping serialization solves for you? Specifically, serialization.
Yeah, I think that the idea of reaching new readers, getting that chapter by chapter input, being able to have the conversations like I'm having with Catherine and other people who are commenting, um, which I just don't think, you could probably do something like that on social media, like on Facebook, but it's just different. And
Not
one of
really
the
to
things that
Facebook. Yeah.
yeah, I along with I think many other authors are getting away from social media because it just is feeling very shallow, I guess.
Mhm.
And I appreciated when I started exploring Substack for my nonfiction work, I appreciated the thought that went into the posts on Substack. I appreciated the thought that went into the comments that people were making. It wasn't just like, scrolling through and giving things a thumbs up. So that kind of connection, the craft input and the connection is why it was really appealing to me. But I will say the one thing that I've struggled with on Substack, because I thought it was going to be more like Patreon in this way, I have struggled with patronage and tiers because I had thought through like how I wanted to um, charge people who are going to be free subscribers. Who are going to be paid subscribers. I decided I was going to publish the first 7 chapters available to everyone, and then from then on it would be paid. Um, I and so it's 6 weeks. Theoretically, in actuality, nobody who is paying monthly is going to pay more than for 2 months, and the monthly subscription is $10. So, and my plan was after the second month, I would actually pause the publication, so no one was going to be like accidentally charged for more than what they thought they were
Mhm.
signing up for. But Substack required me to offer a yearly
Yeah.
offering, and I'm like, a yearly offering kind of doesn't make sense unless you're a super fan and you want to make that kind of contribution. And then I also struggled a bit with like after I started, I thought of other bonuses that I wanted to offer paid subscribers, and I struggled a bit with presenting it in a clear way. And what I actually ended up doing on Substack is I made a little table like you would see on Patreon that would
Mhm.
say, like, free subscribers get this, people who subscribe for 1 month get this, people who subscribe for 2 months get this, annual for this. And then I screenshotted it and I stuck it into my about page because there was just, I didn't think Substack was doing a good job of relaying to people what their benefits were. So that's the kind of thing that, unless they're intentionally wanting to deter people from doing short paid campaigns, which I don't know why they would do that. That seems like a pretty easy tech fix for them to make.
I would highly, highly recommend to reach out and mention that to them. They have been really responsive to different feature requests because they're actively building. Because I go and I jump in on their calls. They do calls when they when the very first time when they released the video capability. I was on that call and they were talking about it, and there people were like, "Oh, it would be cool, like to have a green room. It would be cool to have this." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, please submit. We are taking requests. We have a team working on this actively, so we absolutely would." Be interested in what the community wants. So my suggestion is submit that to them for sure.
Yeah, I just
And
have
I
to
think
call out Catherine's note
go
that
ahead.
she said, I kind of blundered into the annual plan and then got Maddie's clarification, great table, but I'm not sorry to be patronizing Maddie's efforts. Um, and so when I saw that I actually had an annual subscriber, thank you, Catherine, I thought, oh my goodness, what else can I offer? So I had offered a signed print copy of the book as an extra thank you to people who did that.
And I think that's perfect. There are a couple of ways because I was just redoing my Substack like last month because I started getting more people and I'm like, oh, I need to explain. But before that, I really didn't really have any explanations. It was kind of like the generic ones. I had no explanations. And I still got paid subscribers. And then I reached out to those and I'm like, what? Like I give nothing to paid subscribers. I mean, there's one thing. I archive my posts after 2 months, but people who are paid subscribers can go and read the entire catalog. That kind of has been the only thing, and I have to rethink all of it. Probably will do it differently. But they basically said, "Oh no, we just want to support you." That's
Yeah.
kind of the whole point, right?
I think that there are two different approaches to patronage, and I think about this a lot because I have, for example, a Patreon for my for the indie author platform, and I think that there are the ones where I don't want to say the bargain hunters, but the people who are making a decision basically based on what they're going to get at different tiers. And then there are the people who are just like, I like what you're doing. Here's some money. And I'm definitely the second of those people from a patron point of view. And I could
And
just never get my brain around, um, trying to accommodate that first point of view. And also I would feel really bad, like for a time for the Indie Author podcast, I had little extras like outtakes, video outtakes that I was making available to the patrons. But then I felt bad that I wasn't giving it to everybody. And so like I think you just have to make a choice, and there's a different strategy, there's a different mindset depending on which patronage approach you're using.
Yeah. I'm like you. Yeah, if I just like somebody and I like, I'm gonna hop on the wagon and I'm gonna do it. But um when I do Kickstarters, I think when I do Kickstarters, when I'm a participant in Kickstarters, right? When I am contributing to somebody's Kickstarter, there I definitely am looking at tiers, because I definitely want to have like a lower tier, because like, if I want to get a digital book, if I cannot pay $100 for a nice edition. Oh, there are so many Kickstarters that I'm kicking myself now that I didn't support and I didn't do, but I just didn't have the money. So I did the digital versions, or like a very small, like $25 tier, even though I wanted to be one of those $100+ tiers. I just couldn't afford it at that time. So I feel like for Kickstarter, it makes total sense. I know nothing about Patreon. It's still on my list. So I'm going to have to come back to you at some point and like teach me, tell me everything about Patreon.
Well, it is much
But
more straightforward. It
uh-huh.
manages those different tiers in a much more sort of obvious way, but you have to be sending people there. Like, I don't think Patreon is a discoverability platform. The
Mhm.
people at Patreon might disagree, but I think it's just accepting people who are like, reading something or listening to something and saying, "Yeah, I want to keep this going."
Yeah, I think I definitely, people who I support on Patreon are definitely people who I found somewhere else, usually on YouTube, and then I go on their Patreon from there. Like, their YouTube is the discovery platform, and then
Yeah.
Patreon is their monetization platform for sure. Catherine had another comment. Do you want to read that one?
Yep, let me adjust my window here. When I bought the first 6 books in the series, after the first one, I bought them when they went on sale on Kindle, so I was a bargain hunter then. Karma that I became a patron now. Thank you, Catherine.
I think it's different with buying books, because we as authors do that on purpose. That is one of our strategies. We do a lot of different strategies of how to entice people to give us a try, because there's so many options in the book reading space, and we want to stand out, and competing on price is one of the ways. I think that when we're soliciting patrons, at least when I'm soliciting patrons, I definitely want them not to say, "Oh, if I follow Gala, I'm going to be paying $3. And if I follow a blah blah person, I'm going to be paying $4. I'm going to go with Gala because she's cheaper." That's not the mentality I'm after,
Right,
right? In
right.
that case, I'm after, oh, I really like that person. I want to support her. So it's a slightly different angle. I want, like, in my mind, and I know nothing about this. Like, I know a good amount about marketing. I have a master's degree in marketing, for God's sake. But like, in my mind, when I'm looking for patrons, I am looking for super fans. I'm looking for people who are here for me, for my journey, for to a degree a parasocial relationship. I want those people to be part of my community. I want those people to be here because they are having fun being in this thing with me, right? It's a
Yeah.
little bit of a different feel. We'll see how this works out for me. I don't know if that's the right strategy, but at least that's what I am personally after. How about you?
Well, the other patronage platforms I'm using are Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee, and I use those specifically for the indie author platform. And it's really just, I'm going to be doing this work anyway. I'm going to be putting out the podcast anyway. I'm going to be, doing whatever else, whatever other free resources I'm offering, and it's a way to give people an opportunity to help support like the expenses related to the podcast and so on. And so I think I have like a $1, a $3, a $5, and a $10 uh, level on Patreon, and they're all pretty much the same. It's basically, if you want to support the work I'm doing and you want to do it month after month without having to think about it, go to Patreon. I think I have one sort of premium level that does have other perks associated with it, because I think it's worthwhile to offer, an option for your super fans. And then I use Buy Me a Coffee. In the podcast, I very explicitly say I give a plug for Patreon at the beginning, saying if you want to help, continue this work, and want to make a monthly contribution, go to Patreon. And then I use Buy Me a Coffee at the end. I'll say, if you got special value from this episode and we're thinking, I wish I could buy Matty a cup of coffee, you can do that. And I have the link at the bottom of my website. And so, like, if somebody really liked a particular episode, like sometimes they'll send me 3 virtual coffees or whatever. So those are the ways that I've been using patronage.
I love it. I think this is like a whole post. I think I'm gonna, because usually what I do after the lives, I sit down and I kind of like write a post about what did we talk about, because a lot of times when I get into the lives, I'm like, okay, we have a questions, we have the agenda, and then what we actually talk about is different. So I then sit down and write the post about, well, what are the lessons learned? What did we actually discuss, and what can people get from it? So I think a good point here is there are different kinds of patronages, right? There are different platforms for patronages, and they may be serving slightly different points, right? Patreon versus Substack versus Buy Me a Coffee. I'm on not on Patreon, but I'm on the other two, and I am not really using them that well. I love how you have a greeting message, an outbound message. I need to adopt this. I'm still fumbling my way through all of that. I don't have my YouTube set up in any shape or form that is logical. So I'm going to be learning a lot from you. This is like super valuable. I'm so excited. This interview is always like this writing conversations always brings so much value. I'm like astonished by how much people know and how much people share.
Yeah.
Do you want to read Catherine's other
Yes,
comment?
Catherine. So I think I know who she's talking about. She says, I first heard of Matty's Ann Kinnear series from an indie author. I think that's probably Michael Laran, my colleague Michael Laran. She met him at the Writer's Digest Virtual Novel Conference, and he does urban fantasy. That's why I'm guessing it. So Michael's a close colleague of mine. Michael and I have co-authored 2 nonfiction books. Catherine says, yes, that was Michael. Michael and I have co-authored books on becoming an author speaker. And then we did one on co-authoring nonfiction because we figured we might as well share the lessons we learned writing the first one. So speaking of being members of a generous community, the indie author community, I've gotten so much support from Michael in terms of spreading the word about my work. So that's a really nice illustration of that. Oh, and I wanted to loop back on something we sort of touched on very briefly earlier, which was Kickstarter and using something like Substack serialization as a replacement for Kickstarter, because I've interviewed lots of people about Kickstarter and I just get like anxiety just hearing people talking about it. And it's a combination of like the fulfillment side of it, but also just the, like, what happens if it doesn't work out? What happens if it doesn't get funded? Like that emotional strike you get, in addition to the strategic issue of, well, I put this out here and evidently no one was interested. And I think the real strength of Substack, so I don't think I'm ever going to do a Kickstarter. It just doesn't appeal to me at all. I would be a mess for the entire time. But what appealed to me about Substack is, even if nobody commented, even if nobody participated, I got no subscribers, I would still get benefit from it, because at the bare minimum, it is forcing me to walk through every chapter of this book, at that granular level. And I already see that it's not going to be the bare minimum, but I felt like it was low risk because I was going to be getting something out of it regardless of, what the listenership or the subscribership ended up becoming.
Yeah. I'm writing down comments that, so 2 comments. One, I do not know if you've ever heard about this or done it, somatic therapy or somatics in general. Are you familiar with that kind of stuff? So it's about how feelings and emotions are stored in your body, and how can you process that, not just through the mental space when you work with cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, and in like talk therapy. A lot of it is mental, so you're processing mentally, verbally. And then somatics is about like listening to your body and figuring out how your emotions circulate, processing your emotions, and like not storing them and circulating them out, rather than like a lot of people like hold on to stress and then they explode and they get sick and stuff like that. Like how to do it in a way where you're not storing it in your body and all of that stuff. So it's great. I'm not explaining it very well, but it's a different tool. So I'm a very logical person, and my first thing is like, let's go and analyze and overanalyze and like think and whatever. And I was really not feeling all of that stuff. And when I stumbled upon that, I was like very closed off feeling wise to my body, and people were like, oh, what does your gut feeling say? I'm like, I have no gut feeling. What gut feeling? My brain is what's going to tell me the answer, and that's the only way. And then as I discovered that whole thing, and I'm like, oh my God, I was basically stuck in certain things and in certain fears. And one of my fears for sure was the fear of visibility and the fear of failure. And I think all of us carry it. If you watch Brené Brown, she talks about it a lot, and working through that and kind of like being open to, oh yeah, being like failing is okay. Failing is a learning process. And we're project managers. Have you ever had a project that did not have messes along the way? Never. It just isn't
Right.
like always something goes.
Yeah.
So I think that as I was growing on social media, that was one of the things I had to work through, is how to be okay with failing and still trying, like experimentation. So I would, I'm not going to say that you should do Kickstarter, but I would examine, if I were like your coach, I would say I would examine where the resistance to Kickstarter is coming from. Is this the resistance because like this way of doing it is really just not something that I enjoy doing, which is very valid. There are plenty of things that I don't enjoy doing, and we don't need to do everything. I'm firm believer you don't have to be everywhere all the time. Or is this based in your kind of like the fear of failure, fear of vulnerability, fear of what will the people say? And that I would work through and I would challenge, because on Kickstarter you can have a tiny goal. And I've interviewed a lot of people on Kickstarter as well. And that one of the big advices is your first project should not be your like most passionate project. It's better if you start with a little tiny project so that you figure out how everything works, and which is logical, right? In a project
Yeah.
management, we know MVP, start with a little thing. And then once you know how that works, you can go for a bigger project. So all you can do is you can try and like you can sponsor, you can have a $500 goal. You're going to reach $500 goal. You have a lot of already patrons and stuff just on your existing platform, which if you invite everybody over to Kickstarter and they will come over, you're going to hit a $500 goal. And just see, well, what can I do a Kickstarter for with a $500 goal? Or like you can, if you don't like fulfillment, raise for an audiobook. That requires very little fulfillment, right? You raise for how much is it going to be, like $2,000-3,000 at least that you're going to need? Like even if you have covered half of the cost of an audiobook, that would be helpful, I'm sure. Right. So there are ways of doing Kickstarter without that whole giant balloon attached to it that huge popular Kickstarters get, and like what you feed that way. I've seen people also do Kickstarters for their courses, for their digital courses. So again,
Yeah. I would be
so
more likely to experiment with nonfiction because I can think of many other ways to offer tiered benefits, to and share information that would entice people on the nonfiction front. Um,
yep,
there's certainly the fear of failure part too, because as I've said, um, the only time I don't like being an author is on launch day, because there is no way that any launch results are going to match the effort that I've put
yeah.
into a book. It's just always going to be a disappointment to me. And I felt like Kickstarter would just be that like extended over a week or
Mhm.
whatever. But if I were going to experiment with it, I would definitely experiment with it using a nonfiction offering.
Check out Ines Johnston. She's here on Substack. I love her. She has done multiple great nonfiction. I don't know if she's ever done fiction, but I have her book here. She has done a lot of Kickstarters for her nonfiction. This was one of them. She did it for this book, and she had like a digital course with it and a bunch of other stuff, depending on your tier. And I know that she's just finished or still is running one right now for another set of things. So I probably should just reach out and be the bold and brazen person and say, "Hey, Nesty, would you like to do Substack Live with me? I've had this parasocial relationship with you for a couple of years where I'm following you. Do you want to talk to me?" I'm probably going to do that. But yeah, and then once you do the digital, once you do the nonfiction one, and once you know what it works, how it works, you might be more inclined to feel better about other things. And another thing that I've seen people do who are not sure that their following is going to be good is basically doing some kind of a collection with other authors, right? Either an anthology or like the first book in a series, but multiple authors come together and do this together. As a result, you're pooling everybody else's audiences as well. I don't think that I would do that because it feels like a lot of coordination, even though I'm a project manager. I don't know.
I did many years ago. I did do a first in series collection or anthology with other authors, and went through all the work of doing it. And then, like, it was out for about a month, and then one of the authors was traditionally published, and her publisher, although the publisher had originally given permission for her to have the book in the anthology, wanted to do something else with the book and had to withdraw the book, at which point it didn't make it. So it was up for like 3 months, and then I had to take it down. So yeah, I don't think I'd do that again. But I do feel like I am, so far. So my serialization launched on June 6th. That's June 11th. So obviously, results are still early, but I feel like I'm getting so much of what I'm looking for from Substack that I just don't know. Like, even if you could combine a Substack campaign with a Kickstarter campaign, I don't think it would be worth it to me to invest the time and energy in it. Um, and I feel like that might can like trying to send out a message that says I'm doing this on Substack and then I'm doing it on Kickstarter. It just feels like it would be a messy message. So I'm enjoying
Mm,
Substack so much. I
yeah.
fully plan on continuing to do this for future books. And I wouldn't want to try to do Kickstarter on top of it.
Yeah, I was so I'm planning a topic. So, rewind. I'm sure you do the same thing. I go to different summits and present at different summits. And one of the summits I'm going to be presenting on is called Expand by Monica Leonel. Oh my God, when is it happening? I want to say it's this summer. Anyway, soon. I'm working on my topic, and by the name of the summit, it's Expand. It's about how do you have like repeatable process or take one IP and how can you do things. So I am working on a topic and I'm going to see, like, I feel like everybody's going to be talking about exactly the same thing. And this is maybe like what everybody is covering. I need to give her my topic and make sure that nobody already is talking about it. But how can you take the same IP and use it in multiple ways? And how, like, one of my big things in my course building activities and working as a book coach and a creative writing teacher is how can I pre-sell an idea? How can I earn money before I start creating it? So I'm already paid when I'm creating it versus like one of the things that, as you say, with books that gets me so devastated is I spend months upon months on the book and then you put it out and you have no clue if there is a demand for it or not. You hope, you try, you think it through, but until people open it and read it, it's kind of not there. So I am trying to look at it. Okay, if this worked for my coursework, if I can pre-test ideas, et cetera, can't I do that with the books? And how can I do it there? And the kind of what kind of a stacking can you do? And I've talked about stacking with a lot of different things, so we can apply stacking here, right? At the beginning, you can do as what you do serialization on Substack, for example, and you can potentially do serialization on Substack, and then put it on Patreon, for example, and you say, okay, you cannot buy this book anywhere, but on Patreon, go and read it or whatever. And it's, let's say, it's basically kind of like your arc read at that point, right? So, and I'm just thinking all of this through. It's not a strategy that I've implemented. I have no clue if this is working. It's just like my strategy. I'm thinking out loud, but like, what is the first step? Serializing on Substack. Then you can put it on Patreon as a arc read, but you can support me a little bit, then you can do a Kickstarter for okay, let's do, for example, an audiobook or a paperback or whatever, then or super fancy edition, and then you release afterwards in your normal standard whatever edition. And then as you have multiple books, you do bundles, or you bundle it like in some way. It is the same thing, packaged multiple different ways, and people are already doing it, so this is not my original idea or anything like that. But this way you are also grabbing audiences from different places. And if you think about it, a lot of people, and sorry, I'm monologuing here, a lot of people are griping about traditional publishing being super slow, and are enjoying with indie publishing being kind of fast, and you can go and get the like immediate result. And this, I think, could combine both to a degree, where it is a longer path to the actual publication of a book and you hold your own book in hands, but you actually are earning money as you're getting to that point. So yes, you don't have the satisfaction of, okay, I can publish 3 times a year necessarily, because you have a longer lag, because you're going to be putting your book through multiple different things. But you're getting paid while you're doing those things before you actually hit the final publish, which I think is such a different model,
Yeah.
right? And I do not know, maybe it's complete, but
Well, I can't picture doing that whole arc, but I think that having speaking of arc, but I can see picking a couple. I
yeah,
think I wouldn't have the patience, like, once I'm done with a book, I kind of want to get it into readers' hands, and I'm ready to move on to the next thing. And so I don't know that I'd have the patience to take it through each of those, but I think it makes total sense. You could say, here are 5 options you have for repurposing content of your book in a way that's going to earn income. And maybe somebody picks 1, maybe somebody picks 2, maybe some people do pick the whole set. I'm sort of doing something like that with my um, on the nonfiction front on Substack, because for the From Expertise to Authority publication, I am writing articles that are helping me crystallize my ideas around this journey from expertise to authority. And I'm putting them up. The first 6 will always be free. The last couple will always be free. And then if people want to read the ones in between, that would require a subscription. And then those
is it
chapters will
also on
become,
Substack?
I'm sorry?
Is it also on Substack?
Yes. And
I'm gonna go read that.
the then those will become chapters in the book. So, I'm creating them in a way that also solicits input. If I put up a chapter and someone says, well, oh, this really speaks to me, or I don't really understand the terminology you're using, or, it seems to be contradicting something you said earlier, then that's just fantastic input to have as you're working on a larger work.
Are you doing it? So with the book, you've already finished your first draft before you were putting it. For the nonfiction work, are you doing it? You have an idea and you kind of planned out the outline of all of the articles that will be chapters, and then you actually write them once a week as you publish them, or did you already pre-write all of them and you just post them little by little?
No, I am definitely doing it as I write them. So the chapters will probably be very similar to, but not exactly like. I mean, the articles will be very similar to, but not exactly like the chapters in the book. And the first couple were really me getting my head around what is a reasonable framework for me to rest this from expertise to authority concept on. And then after a while, I was I was sort of writing in the sense of the journey a person would take. But then I would have a conversation with someone, like I was interviewing people for YouTube content. I was interviewing them, and then a lot of times my conversation would trigger a thought that I wanted to share, that I wanted to capture as an article that would eventually make it into a book. So I have all these articles, and then I have a outline in Scrivener, and then I'll take the article and I'll stick it in where I think it makes sense in the outline in Scrivener. So this is much more unlike the fiction one where I had the book done when I started. This is much more being constructed as I'm posting it on Substack.
Mm, I really like that. I think that's appealing to me. I definitely want to have a nonfiction book out, but I have no specific plans or timelines or one, and I think I have 3 different ideas for 3 different nonfiction books, and I'm like, but which is the first one? So I think I need to make that decision and do it. But I also have been so busy and writing my other book, so I'm like, what? So I think I like this idea of, well, if I were to like, how many times did I say like today? We're gonna be drunk. Um, I still want to post something long form on Substack. And I was trying to figure out what and how could this be different from the newsletter. And I think now that you're talking about it, I think if I pick one idea, one of the books that I have, nonfiction books that I have an idea for, and basically do that and make the articles be, this is how I create content on Substack. And that is also how I create that path to the book. And it may take me, multiple months to get there, but it's at least, little piece by little piece, bite by bite. So thank you for that. That is
Well,
very
I'm
useful.
thinking about spinning up probably once the Ann Kinnear serialization is done. I'm thinking of publishing a third publication on Substack. So I'll have the novel serialization, I'll have From Expertise to Authority, and then one that would just be the indie author. And just writing articles as they occur to me, and then doing the same thing. I actually have a huge Scrivener file that is just everything having to do with publishing. And what I found is that sometimes within that, I'll start seeing a chunk of content that is, I think, could be worthy of a book unto itself. Like, let's say I'm not doing this, but let's say I was covering the craft as well as the business of writing, and I start seeing enough in the craft section of my giant mega Scrivener file that I think, oh, now I have enough to write a book focused specifically on that. And it's just a nice way to start seeing those commonalities. And you're also not forcing yourself in it. It kind of lets you follow where your energy is going. So if you find that your energy is really behind uh, marketing practices, and you start seeing a lot of marketing practices appearing in your giant portfolio of work, then there you have the basis of a book on marketing for authors.
I'm a little bit afraid of doing marketing stuff in a book format because I find that it changes so, 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 so fast. In the years that I've been doing books, so much changes. I'm not sure that I'm willing to invest. So I'm a lot more likely to create like a course or a talk or something like that because it feels more in the moment. And as in a year, things change. Like last year, I did a talk on how to do Instagram lives. And like this year, 80% of that is still valid, but 20% of that has changed and you can't really apply it anymore. So I think for a book, I definitely want something that is a little bit more stable.
Yeah,
that
for sure.
in 10 years people can read and still apply. I'm looking for a little bit more of a green longevity, whatever.
Yeah, the evergreen content.
Yeah, yeah, evergreen content, exactly. But this is giving me thoughts. Let's talk about what you brought in is the technical aspects of Substack because you're running multiple publications, and I think people get confused when they start working, looking at Substack, when they're starting setting their Substacks up on how all of that is working, profile versus like, well, at least that's how I felt when I started. I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, what's going on? I actually messed up. I set up 2 different ones, one for myself as an author and one for writing conversations. And you have like your URL there and then your name as you put it in. And I flipped them like on my writing conversations is actually sitting on my Gala Ross author URL, and I didn't realize it until later, just because I did not know what I was doing when I was setting up my Substack. So now I'm like, what do I do? Do I keep it, and what do I do? Because I want, if I serialize my book, like, do I then create just the name of the book as a thing? Because I don't want to now convert it all, anyways. So for other people not to make that mistake, could you give us a little bit of an explanation how that works?
Yeah, well, I didn't understand either. And fortunately, I realized I didn't understand it so thoroughly that I spent a day that I was just taking screenshots and putting it into Claude or ChatGPT and saying like, what now? What now? Like, what do I click now? Because it is the idea of, I'm not even sure I'm using the terminology, but a profile, like Matty Dalrymple being my profile. And then within that, you have publications, which is how you would organize things. So I have a From Expertise to Authority publication. I have the serialization. I have the Ann Kinnear serialization publication. The next time I
Mhm.
decide to serialize a novel, I would spin up another publication for that. I would spin up another publication for the indie author. Um, but I think that it's both understanding that as a creator and then like finding ways to help your subscribers through it, because obviously someone who knows me from my novels and shows up, and if they happen upon um, a publication about indie publishing, like that could be confusing for them. So it is a little bit tricky. But yeah, my recommendation would be just um, LLMs are
Yeah,
usually quite good
kind of
at giving
creating
advice about
what
that.
that more or less looks like. So it's like
Yes,
your
yes, exactly.
profile, and then you basically create different publications,
Yeah,
and then each publication is going to have a different URL. So this is gonna, I think this has one URL, and then each of the publications is gonna have a different URL.
yeah,
So you can basically send them there, and they can see that, oh, it's kind of like, let's say, one company, but they have multiple products, right? Or one
yeah,
company, but they are publishing like five different newspapers. It's all under this media group blah, but they are dealing with New York Times, and then this, and then this, and then this. So you can go and read all of them or just one of them, but you
yeah,
know that that media group is on top, and you can see who the publisher is. Or is it also kind of like publishing house and imprints? Maybe would be a good analogy.
yeah, yeah. I think either of those would be a good analogy. Or the books on your shelf. It's the Matty Dalrymple bookshelf, and here are the different books on the shelf. One is having to do with indie publishing. One is having to do with a novel serialization.
And because you all publish both fiction and nonfiction, you're a great example, right? And the same thing with Inez Johnson. She does nonfiction stuff, and she does fiction, actual romance. And I think she just published or is publishing a fantasy as well. So that would also be, it's all written by the same author, but like different things. So that I do feel like they could have it better explained. Going back to how to set up tiers and all of that stuff, I sort of wonder, I need to explore more. Do they have creator academy of some kind where they have videos and explainers? I bet they do. Like they must. They
I
must.
have
'Cause
sort of given up on videos. Like whenever I am looking for instruction on anything having to do with like an online tool or a website or something like that, and I go to their YouTube channel, let's say, if the video's older than like 6 months old, I don't even bother looking at it because it changes so frequently. And even using something like ChatGPT or Claude is not they get confused too. But I have had better luck just taking repetitive screenshots and, saying, "What do I click on now?" And it tells me what to click on. I say, "Okay, here's where I am." I found that's the way that I was able to get through the setup of the Substack publications. Hopefully,
yeah,
the way I wanted it to be.
I just fumble through usually. I'm one of those people who never reads the manuals, and I'm going to go. I was like, who needs to read a manual on how to do this? I will figure it out
Yeah,
myself. I just go and click around randomly until it all starts making sense, because the way my brain works, I see patterns of things. Like, is that if I start clicking and I'm like, click here, I don't understand. I don't understand. I say, oh, that's the pattern. That's how this works. And then
yeah,
I'm going to go and do it.
yeah,
And a lot of times when like people explaining things, it's just not how I understand things. So even if I'm listening to an explainer video, I'm like, that makes no sense to me. Oh, I just wasted half an hour listening to you, and I still don't know what I'm doing.
yeah. Well, I think
So
you're right that if you can understand the structure or the philosophy behind it, or this whole idea of a profile with publications under it. Like, if you understand that, you can kind of go like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, now I kinda see how that's playing out."
yeah, yeah. We're nearing the end of our hour. Can you imagine that? And
I
we have like
know.
5 minutes left. Let me see what we haven't talked about that I want us to still do. Okay, let's talk about expectations. What are your expectations? What is, you already talked about goal minimum, right? And I think you've achieved that. What is your goal maximum in your wildest dreams? Like if everything were to go exactly like it would with this Substack of your story, what would you like it to be?
Well, I am hoping so. Tomorrow will be my last free post. So I think the rubber will meet the road when after that I'm going to be posting chapters, and I'll just show a little bit of the chapter at the beginning for everybody to look at, and then I'll put up the paywall. So if you want to continue reading that chapter, you'd have to be a subscriber. Of course, my hope would be that that people are interested enough to subscribe and to stick with it through the whole 2 months, because obviously you have access to the chapters as long as you're a subscriber, but people who stick with the story through the full 2 billing cycles will get, I'm going to put a thank you to my Substack subscribers bit in the final book, and they will get their name listed in there in the order in which they subscribed. Catherine's name will be first because she was on board very early, and subscribers of now I have to make sure I'm saying this correctly. They will get an ebook of the final book when it publishes, not at the end of the campaign, but when it publishes. So there'll be a period of time when I'm incorporating any of the input that I got during the Substack campaign. Um, Subscribers at the annual level will get a signed print copy of the book, and then I'm also hoping. I mean, I do plan, regardless of what happens from here on out for the rest of the campaign, I do plan on doing this for my future novels. So my other hope is that the next novel would probably be my final Lizzie Ballard thriller. I'm hoping to carry people forward, that if they enjoyed the serialization experience here, they will continue and become fans um, of my other work, and then just being able to continue keeping in touch with people in the interactive way that Substack enables, which I'm just having a lot of fun with.
I think those are great goals. I love them. It feels very achievable, and yeah. Do you put at the end of every chapter that table that you were talking about? If you subscribe, you get this, this, and this.
I haven't been at the end of every chapter, but I definitely would, like in the chapter that goes up tomorrow. I would definitely include that table so that people can hopefully get that clear sense of what isn't included. Um, yeah, but it would be nice to somehow more elegantly be able to point people to that information in a way other than just like copying it. I'm just looking for Substack to do the same thing that Patreon does, where it's all
Mhm.
very clearly laid out.
Yeah, I would send them a ticket and tell them like, "Hey guys, add this to your to-do list. It's a good
Yeah,
feature to have."
yeah.
Um, I'm taking a sales course right now, and they're basically saying that a good conversion rate on a good salesperson is 30% from a sales conversation to a purchase. And then they have other percentages from, like, the first contact to a first call, from a first call to a sales call, from a sales call to an actual purchase. There's percentages of, if you're doing a good job, what the percentages usually look like, in the bell curve. What is that middle part? There are going to be outliers for whom it's going to be worse, outliers for whom it's going to be better. But if you want to be that in the middle of that bell curve, these are usually the stats for people. So I think it would be cool also. I'm not sure if you're a data person. I love data, to see what the drop off rate is, right? I'm sure as you do multiple series in your book, like what is your drop off rate from the first book to the second book, second to third, and usually after the third, it stabilizes. At least
Mhm.
for me, it's like it's usually a lot less a drop off. But anyways, so that will be also interesting. Like that's something I'm excited about to talk about in August. If you have that data to kind of see what the retention rate is and what the drop rate is,
Yeah.
and all of that kind of stuff, would be, if you're willing to share, that is. But
Yeah, I am not naturally a data person, so I know I'll have to force myself to wade through that when it's available.
Mhm. To look at it, yeah, I'm working on Instagram stats right now, and I'm like, okay, let's just go and look what yeah, you have to know what's working, what's not, because you need to double down on what's working and just not randomly do things. And I tend to randomly do things to begin with, but like, you know, uh, it's all working out. This was so lovely. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself. Thank you so
Yes.
much. You're so knowledgeable.
Thank you for the
Mm.
conversation. Thank you to Catherine for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Catherine, for joining us. And if you're watching this as a recording, Maddie, could you please tell us again where they can go to subscribe to your story and read it? And then I will put it in the post. So once this is once the recording is live, there's going to be a post with it that'll have all of the links and all of the information with it.
So
So
if
one more
you're
time.
looking for my profile, it's Matty Dalrymple. It's Matty. Matty with a Y, Dalrymple with a Y. If when in doubt, stick a Y in there, and you'll probably find me. The serialization is called At Sea, as in SEA, since it takes place on a cruise ship. I'm can't say enough that that won't be the name of the final book. I name all my Anne Kinnear suspense novels based on Shakespeare quotes. And I haven't picked one for book 7 yet, so I'm kind of hoping that as we near the end of the serialization, I'll be able to get some suggestions from subscribers or have people weigh in on what the final uh, the final title might be. So yeah, and the earlier you subscribe, the more likely it is that you're going to get your name in the book in my list of thank yous.
Awesome. And we already scheduled our follow-up. It's in August, middle of August, blanking out on the date right now. So it's already scheduled. So you can already go on our profiles and click, like, I think there's like a follow or interested or something, so that a reminder pops up for you before we go live in August and debrief on how all of this happened. So go do that. We will see you in August. And thank you so much, Maddie. Bye.
Sounds good. Thank you. Bye.